Hello there and welcome back to the Closet Historian and back to my sewing parlor where today I need to whip up some window treatments, or rather treatments for one singular window, this window in the foyer, because for the last couple of weeks I've had a piece of paper taped up over the window while I was working on painting in that room, and really it's just not a chic look. And truly I'm not exactly sure whether I'm making a pelmet or a valance today, so you'll have to let me know at the end of the video which it was that I have indeed constructed, because really I'm just going to be making things up as I go along. And while I did manage to successfully put together some swags and tails for the closet room upstairs earlier in the year, I do still find window treatments rather intimidating. It's not my area of expertise, and ever since I've made my first pair of curtains, where I made one panel a foot shorter than the other on accident, I just sort of fear that the ruler and I never exactly get along and can agree on what's happening. But remaining intimidated, I'd better go ahead and get started. I need to move those pumpkins, because I'm going to go ahead and try and clean this wall, which is probably my least favorite renovation and or decorating task, is getting the old wallpaper glue off the walls. But we can't just leave this sad wall here. I'm gonna have to wash it. So that's my next step today. More exciting is that I added the final layer onto the stenciling section, the proof of concept section, which are these tiny like gold brads, I suppose. Some sort of a brass finial in our stonework here is just a little metallic gold bit of nonsense, and I quite like it. There's gonna be quite a bit of gold on the ceiling, so I needed to tie that into the rest of the stenciling somehow, and I think this does a good job. Now I know what you're thinking. Bianca, it doesn't look like you washed that wall, but the truth is, I did, okay? Now, when I've been washing, this is not the first lath and plaster wall that I have scrubbed wallpaper glue off of, and it looks like there's still all this staining from the wallpaper glue. I agree, and it is stained, but this wallpaper glue didn't reactivate the same way that I encountered, say, in the salon or upstairs in the closets. It didn't get that reactivated sticky, slick texture. I know the words sticky and slick are kind of opposites, but if you've ever scrubbed wallpaper glue, old wallpaper glue off of plaster, perhaps you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, the wall felt fine. Eventually this will be paneled. I think I might even do wood paneling when I eventually one day have bajillions of dollars that I don't know where I'm getting it, and have the entire staircase possibly refinished or replaced. I would like to have paneling all along this wall, so no one will ever have to know about the sad state of the plaster, except for us right now. But in any case, last night I scrubbed it. As you can see, I am out of plastic, so I went with paper. Last is best good. And then I did go ahead and prime this with the Zinsser Problem Surface Primer last night. So now that is all dry, and I can go ahead and paint it this same color, Day's End, and I'll have to do 2 coats of that on here, so that I can at least have this be dark and match the rest of this room. It's gonna look so much better. Nice, and Day's End like the rest of it. And I have touched up the surrounding trim and even the banisters a little bit, or the spindles a little bit more here as well. And now this wall matches the rest of the room. You can still see the seam between plaster and wallpaper up there, very faintly, but it's going to be fine. Of course, I do need to extend the stenciling over to here and then down a little bit, but that is a problem for future me. The problem for today me is figuring out a window treatment for this, the saddest window in the foyer. There's a window in the front door. That's kind of exciting. This window is kind of exciting. The stained glass, quote unquote, windows are kind of exciting. This guy is our only plain window here. And as you can see, I have my privacy curtains of some patterning paper taped up for now, as I've been working on things, but today it is time to treat the window, and in doing so, slightly hide the air conditioner as well. I'm going to go ahead and try and create a silk shade that can hang here and kind of tint the light coming in, and then a sort of pelmet slash cornice thingamajiggin lambrequin. Who knows what this is actually called? Not me, so y'all can decide below. Battle it out. And the plan for doing this, I've been actually tooling around for hours up on my computer in Photoshop to decide exactly what I want to do here. I have kind of come up with an idea for the shade and for the shape of the pelmet or cornice or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and mock those up in paper first before I start cutting out things in fabric. All right, I have a piece of, in this case, pattern drafting paper to the specifications of the piece of silk that I wish to make as a shade as the base layer of this situation. So I want to have this piece made out of silk as like a flat shade with an extra long flappy doohickey that I will peak at the end here to hang atop the air conditioner. Now, of course, this piece can be lifted up or folded up out of the way when the air conditioner is in use, but when it is in place in the wintertime, we can have the silk sort of tablecloth draped over it and we will not have to look at it nearly as much, which I think we can all agree is a bit of an improvement. So now I have to translate this incredibly large rectangle essentially into a piece of silk, and hopefully I have enough of it. We'll see how that goes. Well, I didn't exactly have enough fabric to make the whole thing in one piece. I did have to do the flaps for the air conditioner at the bottom separately and then stitch them on. And I will talk a little bit more about the construction of this shade later in the video. Oliver, thoughts, questions, comments? You blend very well with the rug. It's a camouflage moment, buddy. Your stripes are lovely today. The spots are spotting. Okay, pals, what was I doing? Trying to extend the small border around the room. Now, again, I had so many tape troubles in the Salon Foyer, and I figured out that gaff tape held the stencils onto the ceiling, and it was fine. And I never even needed gaff tape when doing the stencils on the walls in the parlor behind us. But for some reason, no tape, including gaff tape, was holding the stencils onto this painted wallpaper in here. So I've been having a grand old time, and I just tried to do this last little bit and I gave up because it was just not holding and everything was falling apart. So I was like, okay, fine. You know what? I'll break, I'll have dinner. Screw you, stencil. But I got this border up here. There was a mistake here, as you can see. So I will have to repaint that. But whatever. We're working on it. It's not gonna be perfect, but that's okay. As long as it looks somewhat like this for now. Eventually, I will either put the wallpaper as planned, or I will have this made into a wallpaper and have someone else install it the next time, because this is the only time I'm doing this in here. Let's face it. But now it is time to make some dinner, because that's enough of this for one evening during the luteal phase. Yikes. All right, pals, we have gone from proof of concept over here, where obviously I have extended our border out a little bit, gonna need some touch-ups, and then I have to do the extra layers, the hand painting of the details, and then the little stenciled gold bits all need to be done over here. But yesterday I was focusing on getting the stencil the rest of the way around the room. So over here, I'll talk about the curtain in a moment. I have put the border up, as it were, if we can call the top half of the room, ignore the Halloween candy, a border, like so. And I've gotten around the corner. Some of this got a little bit offset from the rest, which is unfortunate. Obviously something needs to be done up here, but I didn't want to cut up my stencil at all before I got the rest of it done. So we'll see. Ignore the radiators are clicking on and making their groaning noises. I have to go ahead and put the rest of the flowers here and then on the wall over here as well. Always so much to be done. In fact, there is still across the top of this arch. I continued on past this, but I have to fill in here as well. because this area has not been done yet either. So hopefully I will be able to film a little bit of that for you. So here you can see what my plan was. I made a paper version of this first to make sure I had the right size, length, and then I have this extra bit of curtain that goes down and covers the air conditioner. Now, perfectly, no. I still need to get those cord covers that you can put on top of these to make them a little bit less offensive. I do need to change out this outlet as well. But another thing I want to do today is to try and paint my radiator covers so that they are less hideous. Of course, the burgundy floor is still hideous, but one thing at a time. So let me go ahead and take these off, take them out to the back porch so I can spray paint the parts that I can remove. And then everything else that is like nailed with like the world's longest 1970s nails into the walls will remain in situ. And I will go ahead and just paint that the same color as the trim to try and mask the situation, because right now we just have this beige stripe going on through the back of the wall and it's not gonna cut it, is it? No. Also, if any of you happen to know whatever kind of magic spell I need in order to turn this like retro style record player into an actual like phonograph with like a big horn on the top, do let me know. And one update on the windows, which is that since you last saw them, I have done nothing. I did, however, receive the rest of the light blue color film in the mail, so I can continue this project again. Too many irons in the fire, as it were. But first, after I say hello to my Fifi here, Sophie Sophs. This is the pile of fabrics I have decided will become tablecloths for my dining room. A future project. Obviously, they're still in inspection with the Sophies. But first, I need to go ahead and have a little bit of lunch to fuel up before I get started. It's time for a nice cosmic crisp and a smoothie. Even though it's slightly chilly here today for a smoothie. Too bad. Yes, you're very cute, Mupin. What a silly Billy. Well, at least we're getting somewhere. And yes, the elements on these old radiators are very dusty. I try to vacuum them as much as I can, but you can't really get in there, otherwise you'll crush the elements. So honestly, the whole shebang just needs to be replaced eventually. But until then, I can at least get some paint on these very hideous radiator covers and start figuring out how I'm going to scrub and then eventually paint this floor. Minor detail. Well, pals, it looks the same as it did this morning. And that's because all I managed to do was touch up the little empty bits within the design around the room for both the top and the bottom and everything. But I did not manage to get the rest of the detailing done, finish the shade, and make the cornice that goes on top of it, which are the other things that were on the list today. But now it is 8 o'clock and my neck hurts from doing all the touch-up work already. And I better call it a night for my physical being because my, again, neck hurts and my hand hurts from doing this work already. So I am, again, confounded by the fact that I am a human, which is just not useful when it comes to getting lots of things done. This is hardly enough, you know? I was doing, I mean, I did a tiny bit here, tiny bit there, tiny bit in here, but we have a long way to go. All right, back to my shade. As you can see here, I'm taking the basic rectangle that I made. It really is just a rectangle of fabric with some extra flaps at the bottom, sized to my window in question. I basically made this about 2 inches wider than the window itself and about maybe 4 inches longer so I could fold the top over into a rod pocket and just use a tension rod to hold this up into the window. Now I'm putting on 1-inch wide strips of double fold, not bias tape, but just double fold tape. And I wanted something quite lightweight so that the light could still shine through this fabric, but that the silk would be slightly protected. Of course, the sun will damage both this cotton and this silk over time, so I don't consider this a permanent thing, but there's no such thing as a permanent textile when it comes to sunlight. Sunlight hurts fabric, but should do me okay for a couple of years. But basically I'm just running 2 channels down the back about 6.5 inches away from the edge here, and I can run some cord through these channels. That way I can rouge up the shade and kind of, I don't know, gather it up out of the way if I need to have this window open, or not open, but like accessible, I suppose. be able to look outside. This is not the window with the best view of all in my house. And again, it's just kind of something that requires some privacy from the road outside and stuff like that. So this shade will be down most of the time, but I wanted to make it so it was technically possible to pull it up. And I did just sew right sides together of the cotton and the silk, big rectangle, turned it right side out, ironed the edges, sewed the extra flappies on the bottom, and now I'm sewing these channels onto the back by hand, just because then I can really control the tension, and these will end up quite smooth, and you won't be able to see these channels very much from the front. I mean, when the sun's coming through, you will, but when lit from the inside, like at nighttime, you won't be able to see this stitching very much, especially once I add on the additional detail for the shade. But you'll notice I'm not doing a full tutorial for how to make one of these shades or the pelmet I'll make in a moment here, and that is because I have no idea what I'm doing yet. I have never made anything like this before, so let me have a little bit of practice with this one, maybe another, and then I have several other windows that I'm going to use this same treatment on in the house, so I promise I will have a full detailed tutorial on how to make these sorts of things for you in the future once I have a little bit more experience under my belt. But that's right, I'm going to add some custom patterning onto my shades here using heat transfer vinyl, in this case the flock material that I am so very fond of. It's a short pile, slightly velvety finish. And I'm cutting that into my designs on my Silhouette craft cutter machine. We all know I do love a craft cutter. This is also how I cut my stencils. And honestly, if you are a crafty human and don't have a craft cutter yet, it is so worth the investment. That's what you need to save up for Christmas. Use a coupon. It's really a game changer when it comes to being able to customize things like, say, a curtain. I did, of course, scour the internet and found a book of suggested design elements from the 1880s that I was able to grab some graphics from and kind of rejig them in Photoshop to make them work for either stenciling or decals like this. And as usual, I'll put the graphics I used up over on Pinterest so you can use them on any of your projects if you would like to as well. And I can also link you to the Journal of Decorative Art issue from 1881 where I found these designs as well. Okay, the sun is cooperating, so I'm pausing mid-ironing on all the stuff to show you one of the reasons I wanted to make this slightly sheer, and that is so that the light will come in and glow green through the shade. You can see how the velvet flock is looking so far. Of course, I have to finish the centerpiece here, but I need to actually take this down, take the little magnets off. I have magnets securing the shade to the back of the aircon unit, which of course looks much nicer with silk covering it. I think we can all agree. It's not, you know, a traditional shade in any way, shape, or form, but it's certainly helping with the vibes, I think. So I'm gonna take this down and continue ironing on the rest of the flock, and then I can finally start making the rest of the like pelmet cornice valance thing that needs to go over this leaf. Okay, I have finished putting the flock material onto the shade, and the shade is on its tension rod held up within the window frame here, and it looks as good as I had hoped it would, which is not always the case when you come up with things in your head. Sometimes they don't look as good in reality, but I think this is actually quite fun, honestly, if I don't say so myself. Also, you could do this in any color combination with any material. You could use a metallic HTV on it. I of course went with the black flock, and for me, I really like the contrast of the silhouette against the light, which is again kind of the main idea behind doing it this way. But of course the shadow from the porch and the window frame aren't helping, but otherwise I did as much as I could control, and the rest I cannot. But I have a piece of paper again hanging in the window frame to show the shape of the lambrequin slash valance slash cornice slash whatever the heck you want to call this dang thingy. I'm not going to build this out of wood or any stiff material. I am just going to make it out of fabric and see how that goes. I can always, of course, make something heavier in the future. I don't really want to like drill something heavy up here, but we'll see how it goes. I'm going to try and do it out of fabric first. I have some interfacing, I have interlining, I have some felt. I can make it kind of stiff, but also I have tassels to weigh down the points. So we'll see how it goes. I have two different fabrics that I really couldn't decide between. One is an upholstery fabric that I just fell in love with on Mood one time, and I want to use it somewhere. And I grabbed a bunch of it when I was feeling bold sometime earlier this year. But of course, the natural choice here would be black velvet because, I mean, isn't it always? This is the upholstery fabric, by the way. The only problem I think is that, I mean, this is like a dark olive green, and I almost wish it was black, but this is such a fun, again, rather haunted mansion looking fabric, but I'm just not positive. This is what I want here. I did mock up both, and I do quite like this. The tone of green is much more chartreusey than what I have going on in the room, and that's part of the reason that I made sure and went through with adding the gold little bits into this design to kind of bring in that warmer tone in here. I still do need to, of course, finish the hand painting that needs to go on the rest of the stenciling, and including these little gold medallions that need to go everywhere for the fleck of shine throughout this room. But of course, that's going to take quite a while, and my neck and back are already slightly broken. So I'm focusing on the window treatments for now, just so that I can look down for a bit, honestly. I had the idea to use the pattern upholstery fabric before I ended up figuring out the design for the shade and also deciding to stencil the walls. So at this point, I think it is probably too much pattern, if there is such a thing in Victorian design. When working with Victorian stuff, honestly, pattern on pattern on pattern and stuff on stuff is kind of the idea of the late Victorian era. So luckily, I honestly can't exactly go wrong. Even if it's too much, that's actually more accurate. But in the end, I do think I'm probably just going to use black for this. Okay, so yeah, technically this can be pulled up out of the way to look out the window, which of course the exposure here is helping with my privacy. Thank you, because you can't see out the window, but technically I can. The sun, of course, is beaming in through this window right now. But yes, technically this can be pulled up. I can rouge it actually even higher, which probably would look a little bit better. I do kind of have to tuck up the bottom air conditioner cover flappy thingy. But honestly, I made this shade to have it be down. Like I can pull it up, but for privacy reasons, not only just for filming, but for life, because this is a window that anyone could kind of walk up to if they want to, although I have alarms that would let me know that. I wouldn't mind having it just down. There's other sources of light in this room, so I don't often need this much, being, you know, the kind of vampire-ish person that I am. In a turn of events I couldn't have expected. I can't find the other, I have like 2 out of the 5 black velvets that I know I own. And of course I can only find the ones that are more appropriate for clothes as opposed to the ones that are more appropriate for drapery. And you're thinking, Bianca, that looks like some pretty dark velvet over there. But this is actually a green velvet. But on camera, it definitely looks like the same kind of sludgy black. So that's not so bad. So I might go with this green velvet, which has a kind of, I don't know, sort of sheen that's a very similar tone to the paint actually. So I'm gonna try this for this particular, I don't know, version of this situation. Yes, this cat climbs this ladder constantly. He drives me mad. So I think I'm gonna try this green velvet. Whoop, I'm tripping over a chair. I'm gonna try this green velvet, I think, for this first version of this. And if it doesn't work out, I won't be too mad because this wasn't the original plan anyway. I want to do black. And 2, if it does work out, either it will work for this spot or I might use it upstairs and eventually make a black one for here. So in any case, I can try this for the one that I need to make for this week, at least. Right, Oliver? Right. All right, so I've had to resort to the floor because even the cut table can't handle this. It's too weird of a shape. So I've laid my paper template on 3 layers of fabric. We have the velvet I'm using. I have a layer of cotton twill and then a layer of polyester lining. I'm going to use the cotton twill as the stiffener for this, as opposed to the thick felt I have. I have been looking at some reference, and honestly, it looks like the historical examples of these were most of the time soft furnishings as opposed to built on actually a wood or even a card foundation. So I'm going with the soft furnishing version. We'll see if this works. I'm basically just going to pin this down through all 3 layers, cut it out with a good seam allowance on the side so that it can kind of fold it back. And I'm going to sew this together along these edges, probably leave the top open, turn it, or clip everything, clip all the curves, clip all the corners, turn everything right side out, press everything as best I can, especially seeing as this is going to be velvet, which is not the easiest to press, but we'll see how it goes. And then I will apply trim, apply tassels, see if this works. Cross your fingers for me. And for those of you placing bets, know that plan did not work out for me, sadly enough. Because while I basted this rayon blend velvet, which is what I think this is, was actually from the discount table of Colorado Fabrics, a store I used to frequent back in Denver that has not existed for several years. I cut out my pelmet, I basted the velvet down onto the twill to kind of interline it and give it a little bit more heft. But then when it came time to sewing the right sides together with the lining fabric was really fighting me on it. So then I went ahead and cut out the lining from some black lightweight cotton, and even that was still fighting me. I got everything pinned into place as best I could with that plush velvet fighting me all the way, brought it over the machine, started to try and sew it down, and everything was moving all over the place, as things like to do with a plush velvet. So I thought, gosh, I'm just going to have to hand baste this entire thing and then turn it, and then stitch it and then turn it right side out. And then I realized, why am I trying to turn this velvet right side out? I'll just make the pelmet shape out of 2 layers of cotton, turn that right side out, press it all nicely, cut another 1/4 inch off the edge of the velvet, and basically just applique the velvet layer down onto the top of the otherwise finished pelmet. So that is what I did. I used a layer of lightweight cotton, and I used a layer of cotton duvetine, which is still a slightly velvet adjacent fabric, but feels more like an extra fuzzy flannel. And I used those 2 layers of cotton as my base pelmet that I then basted the velvet and twill layer of the pelmet down onto directly. I then covered the basting stitches and the cut edge of the velvet along the edges of the loop-de-doop-de inside of the pelmet with a 3/4 inch wide trim from Deco Pro. So far, I've been really happy with their quick service and their products so far. Not sponsored in any way, I just have found them quite useful this year. But running into the little roadblocks with the velvet along the way was quite frustrating and did mean that this took me far longer than I had hoped it would, especially because I did a lot of hand sewing. Hand basting the velvet in the first place, then basting it down onto the new pelmet afterwards, then covering it with trim, where the trim was thick enough that I had to sew down each edge individually. So I did a lot of hand stitching on this buddy. Luckily, I do think it was probably worth it. Are you crying, my love? Why are you crying? What's wrong? Oh, sweet girl, what do you need? Do you need lovies? Oh, she needs to be petted. All right, well, hold on 1 second then. As we can see, the need for the floor to be painted remains, as does the need for cord covers, especially that it's nice and dark in this corner now, except for said cords. Anyhow, here is what the finished pelmet cornice lambrequin situation looks like hanging up. And I am quite pleased with it, honestly, because I really didn't know if it was going to come together there for a while. It did feel a little bit touch and go almost for a moment there, but this is what it looks like on a nice overcast day. Perfectly spoopy up in here. I feel like it's a very haunted mansion, very welcome foolish mortals. We're really getting somewhere in here. Of course, I still have to hand paint all the details onto the stenciling. I have the room slightly put back together here because I actually have people visiting within, a week here, and I need to have my house in some sort of an order. And as much as I wanted to have all of the stenciling done, my body revolted because I was in way too much pain. In fact, my back of my neck and my upper back remains in a lot of pain just from filling in the little registration marks that are left over from the stenciling. So I'm already a bit destroyed. I would like to get the rest of the details that you can see on the wall reflected to the mirror here everywhere else, and including the gold, I think will look really pretty in here. And I have not gotten as much done as I had hoped, which is always the case with me, but I am at least pleased with the progress and very happy with how the window treatments came together, thank goodness, because I do find making curtains a bit of a nightmare. For some reason, it just drives me nuts. It's not even that hard, but in this case, I did have to hand sew a lot, so no wonder I resent it. And we have another kitty heard from. Hello, my love. What are you doing, big pumpkin? Pumpkin boy. You're silly. Look at this big belly. Listen, Garfield, you eating some lasagna or what? Yeah, chunky boy. And yes, again, the shade is just held in place along the air conditioner along the bottom with just some magnets that I set on top of there. I originally was like, how am I going to do it? How am I going to make it Velcro? It needs to stay, blah, blah. magnets. Obviously, the air conditioner is made of metal. This is actually not that difficult. I could even paint the magnets or cover them so that they couldn't be seen. What a wild idea. But here is what the shade looks like up close. Again, you can kind of see the slubs of the tricolor blend of dew peony. I love this fabric. I especially love the color, like the absinthe Scheele's green, that it glows in the light, which of course, again, it's an overcast day. It's not particularly bright outside. So this is a gloomy day. So you're really getting the full effect of what this looks like on a gloomy day. I did, of course, add in some additional moth butterfly friends. They look like moths to me from this border design. Again, all of these designs will be linked below, both the graphics that I cleaned up and the original designs from the 1880s design suggestion book, where I pulled all of these things from that I found floating around over on Pinterest that are from archive.org. And then here is our darkest green velvet lambrequin pelmet buddy with its lovely trim. Very fun tassels that I picked up from Deco Pro, both the trim and the tassels, so I will link them. I'm a big fan of theirs. A good way to get around the corners is just to do those loop-de-loops. But luckily these tassels are tall enough that I don't think the cats can get to them. You can see how this is hand sewn, which, I mean, all of this is hand sewn really annoyingly, for the most part, but I would say these are like 80% hand sewn, which is super annoying. But this really made it so that I could control the tension when I was sewing in those channels back there. And I think it lies smoother because of it. Of course, that is the most opaque part of the curtain, so the light is not passing through those channels. And that really did inform how I designed the graphics that went on top of this. I say graphics, but of course, again, it is that flock material, the heat transfer flock vinyl, which, let's face it, I don't know why people aren't making more use of that, both in fashion and home decor applications, because you could make custom shades, bedding, pillows, etc. Tablecloths, napkins are the next thing on my list. So I definitely think people should be doing this more. Maybe they are and I just haven't seen it, but it's not coming up on my Pinterest algorithm for some reason, and maybe it should. And here I just turned on the studio lights because, again, it's a gloomy day here, so you can get a better idea of what this looks like with more light on it. If it were a sunnier day and more light were coming in through the windows. Again, this curtain could use another steam, but it's always, you have to be careful when you're ironing velvet, because it's better to have it be a little bit wrinkly than have it be melted. That's just my opinion on ironing velvet. They do have needle boards, and you can iron velvet if you put it face down on another piece of velvet. But in general, you gotta be careful, you know? You gotta be careful. And you can actually see that this is a dark green color. It actually looks more olive green with this artificial light on it. This is kind of a color change velvet. For the most part, it looks just like a dark, greeny, sludgy black color. But now with the light on it, it almost looks olive green, which is kind of fun. But sadly, this is where I leave both you and the foyer for now, because I need to finish up several things in here, including finally paint the floor. But before I can do that, I'm actually replacing some flooring in the other rooms in the downstairs of my house. So I need to leave this floor as it is for now, because there's going to be too much movement in and out of this room on freshly painted floors for that to be a good idea. So I'm going to actually paint these after I put some vinyl in the back of the house. But I can talk you through those updates and the plan for the dining room and kitchen in my next decor update video. So stay tuned for that if you'd like to see what else I'm doing down here when I'm supposed to be finishing this. And happy Halloween to you all, by the way. I really wanted to get a lot more done and a lot more fun stuff put together for Halloween, but it just didn't happen. As soon as I decided to do some stenciling, we should have known it was over for me and any of my scheduling desires. So that is one window dressed, and several other things still left to finish here in the foyer, including the ceiling, which I have been thinking about a lot more. I was planning on doing that next year, but I've found very fun stencils and patterns that I want to use, and I am starting to go ahead and do the graphic design work, because sometimes I procrastinate other work with future work or like research for things I want to do next. And I'm not usually the kind of person who starts a project and then doesn't finish what I've been in the middle of, but I do have too many plates spinning right now. So honestly, I'm glad to have this one little thing done start to finish. But thank you as always for watching today, and a huge thank you to my patrons who make my work and these videos possible. And as always, I'll be back with more sewing, vintage fashion, costuming, crafting, and decorating real soon. So I'll see you then. Bye.